everyone, welcome to ScreenGeeks. This is Dave.
This is Barry.
And in our ongoing quest to cover movies that came out while we were pod faded, we're taking a stroll down a movie that could have gone one of a couple ways, but I think we're both pretty pleased with how it went. What are we watching this movie this week, Barry?
This week we're talking about David Gordon Green's Halloween. I agree with you, Dave. When they announced that the director of Your Highness was making this movie, I was a little sketchy. And I'm with you. I'm a total cinephile. So yes, I know it's the director of George Washington. I know he made Pineapple Express. But, you know, he recently made the movie where a character wears, I think it's a troll penis as a necklace. I'm talking about Your Highness. Not a fan of that movie. I don't know. It didn't sound like a good idea. I was skeptical. I know Danny McBride was one of the screenwriters. And I agree with you. I think this film, it's a very strong film in spite of that. So let's talk about it. It is about two podcasters who oversee a podcast involving murder, exactly like Dave and I, just like
it hit a little close to home, didn't it?
So close. Oh man, it was like watching my life on the screen. So they're pursuing Michael Myers, the truth of Michael Myers, and of course in the establishing scenes, which I got to say, the trailer I thought was very wise to show that scene because it's one of the first in the film and it's very strong. Great way to start the movie off. We see that Michael Myers is alive and well. We are reintroduced to Laurie Strode, who is now living as a bit of a very fearful hermit who is locked and loaded and ready for anything to come near her house because she has kind of a militia going, a one-woman militia. And this movie exists in a world where there are no sequels to Halloween. This is basically the first sequel after the 1978 original John Carpenter film. Very bold idea. We'll talk about that. But essentially, this movie is about how Michael Myers and Laurie Strode inevitably meet once again on a very fateful and very eventful Halloween night.
Let's go ahead and roll that trailer, and then we're going to talk. Wow, this is a heck of a movie, Halloween.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
Dad, look out!
The bus crashed.
Mom, what bus crashed?
Michael escaped.
So yeah, you bring up Danny McBride. That was like my first kind of, are we sure we're going to go this route? I don't know how I feel about this. And, you know, on one hand, it's great to see that John Carpenter gave his blessing for the movie. At the same time, like, Carpenter's also pretty much gone on record as saying, hey, if you give me enough money, I'll say you can make whatever you want. It's going to be the best thing and the most amazing thing ever. Because he doesn't care. Like, he wants, it's not that he doesn't care. It's that his previous work stands on its own. And if whatever it is just is a bastardization of what it is he made, hey, you know what? The original's still there, which I think is a very healthy way for a filmmaker to look at his work. And in this case, it just happened to work out shockingly well.
Well, to go back to the pessimism towards this project, I mean, you're right. Carpenter has been open about just let it be your own thing. But, you know, the fact is that there was a remake of The Fog, which was just dreadful or nearly unwatchable. And there was a just okay remake of Assault on Precinct 13 that came out. So I think, you know, inevitably, you know, people weren't exactly saying like there needs to be another Halloween, let alone a remake or a prequel or sequel or whatever it was. It wasn't clear at first what this movie was going to be. Just that David Gordon Green, who is an accomplished filmmaker, just not a filmmaker who's ever done this genre, seemingly, you know, between him and again, you know, Dan McBride, we like McBride, of course, but like this, it didn't feel like the talent was right for the project. And I was very happy to be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think the moment when I was like, oh, maybe this is something, is when they got Jamie Lee Curtis on board. It's like, she came back? Like, she doesn't seem like the type to really put up with much crap anymore. Kind of like getting Linda Hamilton back for Terminator Dark Fate. It's like, that's an interesting thing they did. And I don't know if we'll talk about that movie or not at some point, which was a wonderful surprise of a good film as well.
Agreed.
This went the, I hate to say Superman Returns route, where they essentially said everything after Superman 2 didn't happen. And it worked in some ways, nowhere near as well, in my opinion, as how Halloween did. It's for the record, like, if I ever get as pretentious as those podcasters did, I deserve to get killed that way. I'm just saying. Like, the self-importance was dripping off the screen.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of them either. I appreciate you saying that. And I was so glad that these were not the characters that we were going to follow throughout the whole film. Very relieved when they're gone just a few minutes into the opening act. I'm like, great, good. And those scenes, I mean, they showed that Michael Myers is not only a force to be reckoned with, but they made the character scary again. I do love the opening scene of this film. The opening scene, we re-encounter Michael Myers after decades and decades. He is a much older man. He is in an asylum, and you see that he has like a supernatural presence in the midst of the rest of his rest of those who are in there with him. He's in this outside courtyard that resembles a chessboard, and he's positioned in such a way it's almost like Hannibal Lecter, where you can only go past a certain line and that's it. I love this visual. I love this reintroduction to the character, and it's definitely playing into the whole mystical quality of the character that Dr. Loomis, embodied by Donald Pleasance, used to talk about in the original films. I thought it was a great way to get us in there, and it's interesting too. Like apparently that was the last scene they shot. It wasn't. It was something of an afterthought to begin the film that way. But man, it works.
It does. I love the fact that they like call him the Shape. Like not just in the credits, but in the film itself, which really lends that mystery to it. And I agree. Like had those podcasters been the central focus of the film, I would have spent the entire film's running time rooting for them to die. And so I'm glad they got it out of the way right away, and then found a far more interesting story. I think that once again, like it's kind of like about a character claiming her past of domestic abuse or whatever, and taking charge of her life in a very interesting way. I mean, I don't mean to cut straight to the chase like that, but we talked about the Mile High Horror Film Festival last week, and how like the films that they spotlight really showcase what horror can be. And I think this is a film that definitely fits in that mold as well. I could see some folks think it's kind of preachy about the end, it's just kind of, it's a little wish fulfillment, fantasy wish fulfillment. But at the same time, I really think they laid out the film well. I think Judy Greer is so good. Like you're like, yay, another Judy Greer movie. And I'm so like, this is not Archer at all. And she's playing such an interesting character with her own emotional baggage, that she's just like, I don't know if any of this is real or any of it's ever actually going to matter. And I was traumatized as a child. And while they discuss that eventually in the film, they kind of start off with that baggage being there and kind of leave you to pick up the pieces and figure out exactly what it is that took them, that drove them apart. And I thought really effectively so.
I agree. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Judy Greer. I could not have been happier that she was cast as Laurie Strode's daughter. I mean, and I think to really get to it, because you went there, so let's go there. I mean, we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks. We've really been talking a lot about how certainly, maybe not the essence of horror. That's too big a thing to say, but what so many recent horror films have been about women facing their abusers, which makes them unfortunately very timely. We spoke about a film called Alone, which came out, which we saw at the Mile High Horror Festival, which, as you mentioned, is on video on demand. Jonathan Hyams movie, great movie, dealing with a woman dealing with her attacker. A few weeks ago, prior to that, we were talking about The Invisible Man, about how a man using his invisibility to basically stalk and terrorize a woman. This movie is about how 3 generations of women are dealing with this monster who has defined them, this monster who has continued to psychologically torture them and bear down on them, even though we're dealing with like 3 generations of Strode women who have been, growing up with the knowledge that, certainly in the case of the granddaughter, that grandma, faced this monster when she was a young woman. And Judy Greer's character, the Laurie Strode's immediate daughter, having to, surpass her mother's legacy, because her mother's legacy at this point is that she's this crazy woman. And the things that she witnessed as a child, things that, you could say it was an abusive childhood or it was a neglectful childhood. And the film, plays fast and loose with that in terms of how we were supposed to deal with it, because we've seen Halloween. We know what Laurie Strode survived. We know what she went through. Whether you acknowledge the other sequels or not, we can look at the first Halloween and go, that is the most traumatic thing someone could possibly survive. So we know that Laurie Strode, in raising a little girl, telling her to be good with weapons, being good with, survival tactics, we know that like this is a really great thing. But at the same time, the movie's also showing us that no, this is also a very oppressive and hurtful way to raise a child, constantly, embedding her with fear in this sense of that, this guy is definitely going to come get me. But again, it doesn't play easy with this idea. There's a scene in the movie, for all the scenes in this movie I really like, but the one I've seen this film multiple times, and the one that I always go back to is the scene where Laurie Strode shows up at a family dinner, and it's painful. By the way, Jamie Lee Curtis, spectacular in this movie. She's great in everything, but man, she's good in this film. And the scene where she shows up at dinner and she's fearful, she's trying to come across as stable, and the grandmother that the granddaughter wants, but meanwhile Judy Greer, playing the immediate Strode daughter, is just like, this is my mom, this is what I'm used to. There's a strong family dynamic, is what I'm trying to say in this movie. It's really dealing with the psychology of being a survivor of an assault, of a murderer. It takes all this stuff very seriously, so that we don't really need a Dr. Loomis character. We have the family history that we're aware of. We have the family history that these characters and these actors are giving us because of the layers to their performances. There's a lot going on in this movie. Like, it brings baggage. The characters have baggage. We have baggage because of our 40 years of loving these movies. And I think it works. I really do.
Yeah, I think Judy Greer has a really tight, a thin tightrope to walk. It's very easy to just be like this shrieking, shrill person. But it's very clear that she plays that character as someone who's been through tons of therapy and has passed it away. As mom is crazy and it stinks. I love mom, but she's gone off the deep end. None of that stuff was real until it is real. And it felt very believable how she reacted to the events that are unfolding and that surround her daughter Allison, who also, like, Andy, oh man, I'm butchering names lately. I feel so bad, folks. I'm sorry. But is it Andy Matichak? Plays Allison as this girl who's like desperately wants to know her grandmother, but knows her grandmother's ill and has gone through something that just completely changed her life. And like, the way that she ran with that role was also, like, again, like, David Gordon Green is a great director. This film shows that he has the muscle to pull off horror. Again, you could call it a psychological thriller once again, although this is definitely, no, I take it back. The first movie was a psychological thriller. This is a flat out horror movie with the monster, and it still has those psychological elements that pulls it off well without taking away from, like, the supernatural elements, the origins of Michael and how he is pure evil. And I love, like, the Loomis protege is such a weird person, and that's such an unhinged performance that it'd be very easy to go over the top. And it does somewhat, but I think it does it in the ways that it needs to, and in the ways that serve the story well and don't pull me out of the movie. Like, he towed the line. Like, he's tiptoeing right to the edge, but never fully crosses over it, which is kind of, frankly, a good metaphor for this film in general, because it could go over the top. Like, it's brutal. Don't get me wrong, this movie is brutal as heck, but it doesn't feel gratuitous, which is like a really weird thing for me to say. I don't know if you felt the same way.
I do. I agree with you. And the character you're referring to, who the Halloween fans are now just calling Bad Loomis, I liked the way this movie dealt with him, because the character is odd. His being in this film is a little odd because, he's kind of put there to be sort of the substitute for Donald Pleasance. He doesn't take over the film. He doesn't become the biggest part of the film, which I thought was really smart. I think the character is used just as much as he should be used, and then he exits the film, which I thought was really, really smart on the part of the filmmakers. I do agree with you about the violence. It's incredibly violent. It's not painfully violent like the way the two Rob Zombie Halloween films were. What I admired about those films, a lot of things, by the way, I really like the Rob Zombie films actually, but Zombie, certainly the violence in his movies are very impactful. He comes from that school of thought that, like, if you're going to show someone being stabbed or shot or impaled, the audience should feel it. It should be awful. It should feel like this crime against nature. It should feel like the earth shakes, which is certainly how it always feels in those movies when Michael Myers, is stabbing someone. It's very horrific and it's very visceral. And in this movie, like, it's a very violent film. But I agree with you. Like, the worst stuff is shown off camera, and it really is more about the threat of Michael Myers than it is about the carnage. Oftentimes, we're seeing the carnage afterwards. And one of the things that I found very effective in this movie that these characters are very likable. I liked Judy Greer's corny husband. I loved him. I love the babysitter who has that little boy that she's got this
Oh,
really comfortable rapport with.
Jabril
Like, I like
Nantambu, he is a treasure in that movie.
fantastic. I love those characters. Like, I like these people. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. So when bad things do happen, it kind of underscores what's effective about this movie, what was effective about the original film. It's a tragedy. We're not, we've come to a point, of course, where, with horror films, we're rooting for the bad guy. We're rooting for the stupid teens to get killed. Not the case with this movie. I like these people. I wanted them to survive. I was really upset when some really nice people were horribly murdered in this movie.
Yeah, I was also like getting back to the idea of like the women having to put up with some serious crap. Like Allison's friends, like the boyfriend and best friend, whew, like it's I know they're stupid teenage boys, but boy, they were some scumbags in that movie. And it's just like, I really don't know that I'm going to feel bad if they get offed. So it still has like that moralism to it that there are certain characters you're like, well, if they go, well, sorry kids, that's just kind of the way that goes. But the film kind of goes out of its way to justify how some of those characters die. Now, to be fair, the one glaring difference that I thought was kind of ballsy on this film's part, like it could have been, woke or whatever. Like I hate that term with a fiery passion, but the scene where the son and his dad are out, and the dad's like, well, what do you mean you want to go dancing instead of hunting? And the kid's like, look, I'm just different from you, Dad. And it's like very clear that it's like, this kid is finding who he is, and he's got a life ahead of him, and he has dreams. And then having those dreams snuffed out by Myers, like it really showed like anyone can go. Now, the one line I'm glad they didn't cross was the baby scene. Like had they done that, I probably would have walked out of the movie, honestly. So like this movie is a tightrope act from beginning to end, and it knows when to push buttons for the audience, and it knows when to kind of sit back and let you have the breather. And I think setting up killing the kid earlier really sets up for, oh no, he's not going to no, he can't do that. And then thankfully the filmmakers kind of let us have that release valve of, okay, they didn't do it. And which just really shows a mastery of storytelling. Like this film is just fantastic from top to bottom. If you like horror movies, like I have to realize that I don't like horror movies the same way a lot of other people do. Like I see the nuance, and like Steph she enjoyed Cabin in the Woods. She's like, it was a really fun movie, but Dave saw all this meta stuff and whatever. And I was just like, whatever. So you know who you are. There's nothing good or bad with that perspective.
Yeah. Cabin in the Woods is a good example too. Cause when all is said and done, and Cabin in the Woods is a horror film, but it is also a comedy. It's also a movie that's, it does have a very comfortable and really enjoyable distance between the real sheer horror of it and the humor, which is really rich for that film. I mean, this movie is, again, to use that word tragic, there's an element of tragedy to the lives that are being lost, and how cruel and random some of their fates are. I showed this to Julia because I thought, oh, she's really going to dig this, and she hated this movie just because she found it so upsetting and dark and despairing, and she found it even more so than the original, which she's seen with me as well. I do want to talk about the baby scene for a second because I'm still unpacking that. I saw this movie twice in the theater. I liked it that much. But yeah, I'm still wrapping my mind around that because it is a bold touch. And by the way, it's in this incredible scene. It's one of my favorites in the movie where the camera follows Michael Myers as he just goes on this rampage.
It's such a good tracking shot. Oh my goodness.
It's amazing. It's like Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. The camera is following him from that angle, and we're watching him walk around Haddonfield, have these random encounters where he just kind of randomly kills people and just lets them walk by him. But the baby scene is peculiar because it's not this little moment that the movie like surpasses. They linger on it, and they show you that Myers makes a decision not to murder a child in a bassinet. And I don't know, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the moment. It is odd that the movie does give us a sense to like see that Michael is able to compartmentalize or moralize or whatever the heck is going through his mind. What do you make of that? Because I'm still unpacking that scene. I don't know what to make of that moment, rather.
The more I think about it, like it could be seen as a flaw in the film. Like if the movie is going this balls out, he probably should have killed the baby. And I think it was a conscious choice by the filmmaker saying, we're pushing a lot here, and I don't think that we can go here. Now, that could also be if they had gone that route, that might have pushed the film past the R rating. That's entirely possible. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, because that would be very upsetting to a lot of people. I mean, heck, I admitted that it would be possibly have been a deal breaker for me in the film. So I was thankful for the reprieve, but I also can't argue against anyone who would say that it wasn't in keeping with what the character was for the rest of the film. So I don't blame you at all for kind of having that struggle of kind of reconciling that with the rest of the movie. Man, yeah, that could be like that is kind of like the film's one glaring weakness, because it doesn't hold back otherwise. I mean, there is some significant gore in this film, but like you said, a lot of it is done in shadow or off screen. So it would have been easy to do the same thing here. I don't know. I really don't know. Do you feel like it was kind of like done as a story breaking thing to give us a break as an audience? Because I see that argument for sure.
Dave, I completely agree with you. There's a part of me that feels like, well, it almost feels out of character for Michael Myers to show any kind of mercy. A completely different film, but a couple of weeks ago, I revisited Predator 2. I don't know when the last time you saw Predator 2. There's a moment in Predator 2 you never seen it?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so there's a moment in Predator 2, Predator can look at the humans with predator vision, right? He's about to murder this woman. She's a cop, and she's been firing her gun at him. He takes her by the throat. He's about to kill her, and then he uses his predator vision. He looks down and sees that she's pregnant so he takes mercy on her and then runs off. And I thought, well, that's interesting that the movie, makes that distinction, that the predator is not going to murder a pregnant woman. And, and to be very clear, I don't want Michael Myers to kill a baby. I don't want the predator to kill a baby. Just to be clear about this, I'm not saying like, oh man, that was a missed opportunity. I'm just, it is a lot to deal with, because it is this question of like, where, do we want to even go to that question of like, well, what's the line for Jason Voorhees? What's too much for Freddy Krueger? And that was, again, like I kind of want to give the movie, I just want to just kind of use the word bold as you did, and just say like, it was really bold to even like have a moment that even goes there. But at the same time, because the film just doesn't deal with it, it does feel out of place, because I mean, just a few minutes later, there is the scene where Michael Myers, we don't see it, we see the after effects, but he removes a cop's head, apparently removes everything inside his head, and uses the shell of his head as a jack-o'-lantern. It's a hell of a visual. And you think like, man, like this guy was like, like a pretty reserved just 10 minutes ago. And, here he is, being all inventive with his murdering. So yeah. So anyway, it's neither here nor there, but as a fan of this movie and a fan of the character, I did find it interesting. I mean, this is maybe the one time I've ever thought about this sort of thing in these movies. And we're going on, God, I mean, how many Halloween movies are there? Is this the 9th one, the 10th one? I mean,
no, it's only the second. It's only the second.
How do you feel about that, by the way? I struggle with that because I love Halloween H2O. I love that movie.
I have not seen a Halloween movie except for Halloween, so I'm okay with it totally and completely.
Okay.
It sounds like I need to watch H2O, perhaps.
I love H2O. Yeah, Halloween H2O came out in '98. It's and that movie is also positioned to be like the sequel. Like only 1 and 2 exist, and H2O basically is that Laurie Strode changed her name. She's the headmaster at this private school where, of course, all the teenagers are like LL Cool J and Michelle Williams and Josh Hartnett because it's 1998. But it's freaking great. She's great in it. Janet Leigh is in it. It's one of the last things Janet Leigh ever did. I love that movie. And the way they deal with Laurie Strode in that film is that she's a survivor, but she's also got PTSD. I think it's very respectable and even a companion piece to this movie. But according to David Gordon Green, it doesn't exist. So never mind. There's only 2 Halloween movies. Never mind.
Okay, fair enough. To get back to the baby thing, like I kind of want to talk a little bit more about it because, frankly, I'm comfortable with hand waving the whole thing. However, like if I want to go through the mental gymnastics of the thing, it felt like a lot of the times that he's offing people, he's trying to upgrade his weapon like he's in a video game, or he's taking care of people who are offering some kind of resistance. And since this infant obviously couldn't offer any kind of actual resistance, he didn't have any reason to kill the child. That's a lot of gymnastics. Like I feel like I should get a 10 from the Russian judges. but it's what I can come up with, and I'm more comfortable just like identifying it as a possible flaw in the script that I'm completely happy that they didn't correct.
Yeah, I agree with you. To be clear, thank you, David Gordon Green, for not killing the baby in Halloween. Thank you for showing restraint for that moment. And but it's still impactful. Every time, I saw the film twice in the theater, and both times that scene, you could hear the audience go, there was like this real, like, everybody hold your breath. You don't know what's going to happen here. And, obviously it's a sigh of relief, but I totally agree with you. I thought about that moment because I thought, why is Michael Myers showing restraint? Why is he showing sympathy? And I think maybe there is some psychological baggage to unload. Again, I like your point that the baby's not a threat. The baby doesn't represent anything from his life. It may be the first baby he's ever encountered. It may be the first infant he's ever been in the same room with, alone or otherwise. So it's kind of like, how you would disregard a dog who's not a threat to you.
What I love is that we're breaking this down so much about a scary movie.
And we might be talking about this more than David Gordon Green ever did.
No. I think there's a lot of thought put in this movie. I think this is the one time in the movie that the film lets up on the gas a little bit, because it is barreling along otherwise. And again, I'm okay with it. I thought Will Patton was fantastic in this movie as Officer Hawkins. Yeah. Oh,
he's great. Yeah, this, I like the ending, but the whole midsection, that long tracking shot we're talking about, just the building of it, the tension of it. When Myers and Strode see each other through the window, I think that's a great visual. There's a lot here that it does feel consistent with Carpenter's intention. The imagery is very nightmarish, but it does feel real. It does feel like Middle America. The emotions of these characters feel very real. I found myself very invested in the film. And again, like, for the first time in a long time, it was a Halloween movie where I really liked these characters. Too many of the sequels, the characters are interchangeable, they're disposable, they're all kind of like, the jock, the nerdy guy, going through all that. I mean, Dave, consider yourself lucky that you haven't seen all these movies. I mean, the low point was Halloween Resurrection in 2002. That's the one where Busta Rhymes, I like Busta Rhymes, but not an actor. He plays it's like instead of Girls Gone Wild, he's the entrepreneur of this video series that he does called Dangertainment. And he has these kids go into the Myers house, and surprise, Michael Myers is there. And the movie visually is meant to be like the Blair Witch Project, which is a terrible idea. So it's a found footage Halloween movie. So, it's like kids going, oh, wow, look, it's the guy with the mask. It's terrible.
Okay.
It's terrible. And you're so glad, like, thank God this guy's just hacking and slashing, because these kids are morons. And anyway, my point being, I didn't feel that way about the 2018 Halloween. I like these characters so much so that, like, when a lot of them died, I thought, what a bummer, because, like, these are really likable people.
Yeah, the babysitter was probably one of the most heartbreaking, because just like, I mean, she's not the best kid in the world, obviously, but like, she's got a good heart, and she's, taking care of the kid, and the relationship between babysitter and babysittee is gold. Like, I didn't want that to end. Yes, and when it did, it was really sad. And I'm not going to spoil anything else about who dies in this movie. It's a babysitter and it's a Halloween movie, so you kind of have an idea that's going to be coming. And I think it's even in the trailer. But as the film, like, you bring up that middle part, it's like everyone's on the same page with Laurie that, no, this is really happening. This guy's real. He's on the loose. We've got to stop him. And Will Patton's like, I'm not looking to arrest this guy. I see him. I'm putting him down. And so for her to have those allies, for the the Strode family to have an ally in law enforcement is great, until for whatever reason those allies are taken out of the picture and taken off the board, and then they're on their own, which I think at that point, I totally get the criticisms that it could be seen as being a wish fulfillment, fantasy about exacting revenge on your abuser or whatever. But I thought it was really well done. I think the setup of how Laurie's living was very well thought out. It's like, that makes complete sense. Like, if she's making all kinds of money from doing interviews and not saying anything, of course she's going to build a fortress. And it really played well. And it was kind of fun seeing the cat and mouse from various perspectives in the film's third act.
I agree with you. I mean, the only character in the horror genre that is, I'd say, arguably more empowered, either more or on the same level of empowerment, intelligence, the ability to deal with her monsters, is Ellen Ripley. And I found the last act of this movie to be very alien. Sigourney Weaver alone with her little flamethrower gun, going through quarter by quarter. I thought it was very similar in a way that's obviously very favorable. I think the ending is very suspenseful, well done. I love the final reveal of how ultimately she deals with Michael Myers, how she's able to.
She goes full Sarah Connor.
It's good stuff. Yeah, it is very Sarah. You're absolutely right. Especially the recent Sarah Connor, very similar idea of, it's certainly in this political climate as well as in this movie climate. It's not often that you see, a middle-aged woman who is gun loving and has military training or military acumen, and is a loner, is not married, is possibly unstable or referred to as unstable, be the hero of the movie in a way that is plausible, likable, and complex with all the baggage of that. This movie has it, and in a different way, Terminator Dark Fate also has that too.
Yeah, I feel like we do need to do that an episode.
We probably should, because we both liked.
Yeah,
we should talk about it. It's good. It's really
we
good.
can do that. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to see the movie, for crying out loud. First of all, but I love how the film is very smart about how Michael feeds off of fear.
Yeah,
and then there's a scene where that hunger is taken advantage of to great effect. Initially when this, I'm sure you know exactly what scene I'm talking about at the end. And it's like, well, that feels really out of place for this character. And you're like, oh, I see what they're doing. And I can't wait to see how this is going to resolve itself. And then it does. And I thought it was incredibly satisfying. And it sets up our sequels that we're not going to get to see until who knows when. But it really was so very satisfying. Like, I cannot wait for Halloween Kills. Like, I know it's going to be another year. Like, we do the artsy stuff. Our first episode back was on the, of A Hidden Life, for crying out loud. So the fact that these movies are connecting on such a core level with us that make us want to see what happens next, again, it's a testament to just the skill and the audacity of these filmmakers.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the way to bring this character back. I mean, we're living in an age of intense nostalgia for the 70s and especially the 80s right now. I was thinking about it the other day, like when this exactly started. And I know some people say like, 2010, Tron Legacy. I think it goes back even further. I mean, we've had this unquenchable obsession with the 80s and anything nostalgic for a while. And it's resulted in a lot of franchises being brought back improperly or poorly, or, just in a real haphazard way that, they came back, but they also ended. This, on the one hand, if this was the only one, if like David Gordon Green had said like, look, I'm out, I did this one, that's it. I would say bravo, fantastic.
Absolutely.
The fact that apparently there was a bigger story that they had planned from the very beginning, and they shot the two sequels, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, back to back, like Back to the Future 2 and 3. I love it. And apparently Anthony Michael Hall is on board as Tommy Doyle, the character that was introduced in the very first Halloween, played by Paul Rudd in Halloween 6, by the way. I can't wait for the sequels. It bums me out that we're not seeing it this month like it was supposed to be. But nevertheless, if a year from now we're all in theaters and, there is a sense of normalcy, not to mention feeling safe back in the movie theater, I'm happy to wait for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious to see what happens going forward. I'm excited. Like I saw it. That may have been one of my first Dolby Digital movies I saw with the AMC A-list back when I had it. Because my AMC is open, but guess where Dave's not going right now? Although I'm going to be honest, I've been tempted. Tenet's showing, and like I've checked showtimes a few times, and there's like one showing a day, and there's no one who's bought a ticket. I've been like, do I do it? And I can't. I can't justify it. So that'll be a home video watch. Maybe I'll break out the outdoor screen and watch it on decent speakers and stuff.
Would you go to the drive-in?
I probably would, but none of the drive-ins around here are doing current releases. All of them are doing revival screenings.
Around here, that's true. Because Fort Collins, if you're willing to drive to Fort Collins, they've got Tenet. But yeah, that's a drive.
That's like an hour and a half drive each way, and then the movie's like 2.5 hours long, and I'll probably end up just waiting for home video. I've heard it's good, but it's not like mind blowing, so I can wait on that. So
the word I heard from Christian Toto, our friend Christian Toto, is that the word he used was incomprehensible.
Okay, I mean that could
be,
okay, fair enough. I mean that could be good or bad depending on who's
I guess that could be a compliment because Inception kind of, and I loved Inception. So,
but try giving an elevator pitch on that movie. It just doesn't happen.
Or any movie from Christopher Nolan. Yeah, his stuff is. Yeah, he thinks big. He's got a very big canvas that he works in, and I love him. I hate that I may not see Tenet this year. That's another heartbreaker. But
yeah, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough. Hey, at least we got Bill and Ted.
We got Bill and Ted 3. Yes,
we did. So I think that we've talked enough about Halloween. I obviously we love this movie. I know not everyone does, but we are rather large fans of it.
It was a huge fat hit. I mean, it made $150 million, which is more than any of the others. I mean, it was a gigantic, out of control smash. So I think overall people dug it, but yeah, there are some fans, who have, some issues that they're nitpicking. I'll say really quickly, I don't like that it's just called Halloween. I wish they had some kind of subtitle. Call it Halloween 2018, whatever. Like, it's very confusing. There's a 78 Halloween in 2007. Rob Zombie, his movie is just called Halloween. Not even Rob Zombie's Halloween, just Halloween. So now there's 3 films just called Halloween, and it's confusing.
Well, at least 2 of them are worth watching. Sorry, I can't hold back on that.
Not a fan of the zombie, are you?
Not so much. Not so much. Yeah. That's okay, though. That's not what we're talking about. We just finished talking about the 2018 film by David Gordon Green. Highly recommended. You can catch it, obviously, anywhere on the streamings these days. If you want to catch old episodes of this podcast, you can go to ScreenGeeks.com. If you want to shoot us an email, you can hit us at podcast Barry or Dave, all at ScreenGeeks.com. If you want to hit us up on the Screen Geeks page on Facebook, I will also respond to those messages there. I guess we're due to do a what we've been watching episode soon, but that's not happening next week. But first, wait, there's more we got to talk about here. Our music, as always, provided by the great band Five Iron Frenzy. Congrats to them funding their Kickstarter, and then a lot. I absolutely contributed a little bit to that. If you want to catch other episodes on video, you can also catch us at youtube.screengeeks.com. Again, facebook.com/screengeeks. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can hit us up at 970-315-2048. And I think like next week we're going to talk about another horror movie that came out not too long ago. So yeah. James Gunn's Brightburn, which the man has a singular vision when it comes to his movies, to be sure. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it's not, but I'm always intrigued, and this is going to be an interesting conversation then again. So, but until then, this is Dave.
This is Barry.
Take it easy.